2018 has been a wild ride for us gamers, and I have to say, I'm very happy in the direction we are potentially crossing for the gaming future. One cannot deny how much has changed throughout this year, and for the most part, it's been in a positive way. In today's video, I will highlight the most impactful things I witnessed, read, saw, and experienced in a top 5 video format. Let's review what we can do right, fix, or improve for 2019. So let's not beat around the bush and let's get to it. Though we have made some positive strides, we cannot ignore some of the negative news stories and practices that 2018 have highlighted yet again for us. And let's start with one that just really shouldn't be a thing. Games being released in a broken, half-baked, or released as a clear cash grab are just things that should not be accepted whatsoever. How in the world in 2018, 2019 this is still a thing? Well, the answer is really simple. It's just the fact that companies are being greedy and being unrealistic. Companies cutting corners to try to make a buck even if the product is not worthwhile. It is one of the few and only industries where somehow we consumers have not shut this down yet. We have been complacent in this behavior. Like, how pissed would you be if you went to Chick-fil-A and ordered a chicken sandwich and only got the buns, and you were told, the chicken will come later after it's cooked? Do you realize how stupid that sounds? But that is exactly what we have come to see in 2018 and what we have experienced because of this kind of behavior. Games like Fallout 76, Sea of Thieves, State of Decay 2, Metal Gear Survive, just to name a few. Incomplete or broken games are still a thing because we have not been able to truly punish the companies for doing this. Publishers need to understand how game development works. Games like Sea of Thieves could have had an amazing, great launch, but with a rushed deadline, you left consumers with a shell of a game. There is no need for that if you just give the time to make the game and produce it how it's supposed to be produced. Sea of Thieves looks like it's becoming a great game and its content that is there. People are coming back to the game. But the problem is not to come back to the game. The game should hook you from the start. The other side of this is cash grab games like Metal Gear Survive. Holy crap. This was a clear indication that this was just something to be abused. They didn't care about making a good game, they just cared about slapping a name that everyone recognized, and that's it. Everyone knew this, and it sucks that people kind of fell in and gave sort of money into this, but for the most part, games like this exist because they know they can sell games on name alone, and that is shitty. Games should be sold on their merit, not just the name. But then you cannot leave this topic without talking about Fallout 76. Like, what in the world happened here? No quality assurance was on this game because clearly the game was just broken. The reviews were terrible for this game and everyone was upset. Bethesda here bid on more than what they could handle, and it's apparent. They did too much. They had a lot of things wrong with this game, with an outdated engine, clearly overestimating how quickly they can get this done. Like, what Bethesda did with Fallout 76 makes them now in line to have the reputations of EA and Activision, and that's just not good. You don't want those kinds of reputations because once you get there, it is very hard to regain our trust, and in 2019 we have to do better. I swear after this I'm done because 2018 was positive, but this thing is actually two things, but they fit together because they are one real issue, and that is dealing with gaming stigmas. The first stigma is about the amazing people who make our video games, and the second is something that mainstream outlets have always been trying to pin on us, and that is that somehow gaming makes us violent. So let's break down the first one. Over 2018, we've had some amazing games come out, but the news coverage once again shined a big spotlight on the big cost of doing big games. there is a bit of controversy surrounding Rockstar and how Red Dead 2 came to existence. And I mean, not to get into the nitty gritty, but essentially, we're being told that the dev team behind this game was possibly forced to work 100+ hours a week, sometimes around the clock, and sometimes sacrificing their health to get this game out. Like, I'm not gonna go into it whether this is true or this is false in terms of the Rockstar case, but as an industry, we know this is true. We've had proven cases of this time and time again, and this is something that needs to stop. We cannot be putting our game developers into these situations. I understand, coming from an engineering background, what it means to work with a deadline and pressure and working a little extra hours to get things done, but there is a limit and there's a balance to it. You can't have these individuals work like this for a long periods of time, because overworking is just at the end going to give you bad results. Overworking is only a downhill effect, and the gains are only temporary. You do not want our game makers to be in this kind of position. We must always be aware and push for the best conditions for these people, because they are making excellent experiences or trying to do their best to give us the best experience. And them being worked like this is just not healthy. And to do our part, we really have to be better at not flipping the gun when games get delayed. If a game gets delayed, it's getting delayed for a reason. You're asking for developers to work unreasonable hours to try to get a game so you can get it faster, and then you're going to be upset because the game is buggy and not working. Well, you can't have everything. You have to choose. And that's why I always advocate I'd rather have a delayed game, because a delayed game will at least have a better chance of being a good game at release than a rush game at release. Now, the other stigma about being violent, that's just something that unfortunately we have to deal with as an industry, and it just won't go away. Tragedy struck once again when there was a violent shooting in a gaming tournament for Madden. And that sucked, and that once again sparked controversy that gaming causes violence and whatnot, and we have to repeat this cycle of saying no, there are studies that show that gaming does the opposite. Like, it's something very annoying that we have to deal with, but we always have to be on top of it, because we can't slip up and not defend ourselves when it comes to this. Gaming is not the issue when violent stuff happens. We have to find it at its source, and that is unfortunately people. We have to be aware that these people have to be monitored and have to be given the tools to better themselves. Mental health is very important to discuss and to advocate amongst our community, and we have to make sure that these people have access to the tools they need to get better if their problem arises. I'm hoping one day this stigma leaves us, but for now we just gotta keep making sure we're on top of it and stay positive and help those in need. Now, on to the more positive and fun stuff. Let's talk about some great things that happened in 2018. And to start things off, I want to talk about something that I've been advocating all year, and that is cross-platform play. Okay, yeah, it's not a thing yet, but we've come a long way in 2018, man. Like, I am so pumped. And whether you like it or not, Fortnite and the team behind this worldwide phenomenon, Epic Games, are the ones to thank for making this hot topic a conversation and something in the minds of every gamer and mainstream outlet. It wasn't just Fortnite that made this such a big deal. It was the fact and combination that Sony was so reluctant to give in to this feature that really blew up. Like, if it wasn't for them being dickheads for months, I don't know if the publicity on this specific feature would be as big as it is. Rocket League could not have accomplished this, even though they were pushing for the same thing. It was a combination of Fortnite's global phenomenon, Sony's controversy towards it, that allowed this to be a thing. Like, with one account, you can play one game on any system. This is huge, and this is the direction we need to take gaming. Why? Because there are no downsides to this, and gamers get what they want, and companies get what they want. I've definitely talked about this multiple times over 2018. What are the advantages of doing crossplay, period, for non-exclusive titles? Like, this should just be a staple. And sure, maybe 2019, 2020, they're not going to be a thing yet, but we have high hopes that maybe next generation, next console generation, this will become a staple. And we gotta try to push and make that a reality. I mean, with news that Epic Games is really trying to sell their cross-platform technology for other teams to use, is a huge win. Like, making that marketable is the first step in order to make it a reality. So we just got to make sure we stay on top of it, so that way we have this for the future. So one thing that took a step back is how we saw monetization work in our games. More specifically, we began seeing the destruction of the worst kind of monetization, in my opinion, in video games, and that is loot boxes. These garbage money-grabbing tactics took a big PR hit at the end of 2017, and in 2018 we saw the ramifications of that blow-up. Some countries in the EU did not take the outcry lightly, and those being Belgium and Norway have begun taking actions against them, ruling them as gambling and harmful to children. Games like Overwatch, CSGO, and others under Activision and EA are being forced to remove or modify the changes. For example, like before a purchase of a loot box, you must show what you're getting beforehand, or outright remove the mechanic. This is a small step, but there's still talks on how the rest of the European Union may follow suit. And if that happens in the entirety of that space, we're going to see dramatic changes, because there's no way gaming companies are going to lose that chunk of market just because they want to be greedy. Now, I understand there are some hesitations and reservations because governments are now stepping in, monitoring our games. And, you know, I go back and forth on this, because I argue that it's because we don't have the power to change it that we need governments to step in. But then again, we do have the power. It was our outcry in 2017 that made this even a thing of discussion. We do have that power. The problem is, our voices are loud, but the voices who still support these kind of practices are kind of louder, and they allow these companies to still continue to push through. As a small example, we got to look at the sports industry. The sports gaming industry, they are notorious for this kind of behavior, and the people who play those games are locked in. They don't see an issue with the monetization system, and that's terrible, and that hurts our case in trying to eliminate these practices. We're seeing reductions of season passes, we're seeing reduction of paid DLC. You know, these are kind of being faded away. They still exist, but they're being faded away, and they're being transitioned to the more popular Battle Pass system that Fortnite introduced. Now, the Battle Pass system isn't great, because done poorly, the Battle Pass system sucks as a monetization system. But if done well, you know, it provides a good incentive and a good way for companies to still make money, but still allow gamers to feel rewarded. And I mean, we still have shitty companies like Activision messing up their experiences for their consumers. I mean, talk to any Call of Duty faithful who plays the new Black Ops game. They are getting screwed over and monetized for the littlest things, and their monetization system just sucks. Loot boxes are garbage, and they have to go. There's just no reason for them to exist. We have to keep fighting to make sure that at least all monetization practices from here on out are good and consumer friendly, and not just ways to reach our wallets. Do you guys remember that one guy? Who was it? I don't know. Who was it? There was someone who said that single player games or don't make money anymore. No one plays them. I forget who said that. But they were like, yeah, no one wants to invest in them. Why make them? I can't really remember who. But whoever they are, guess who was wrong? Because 2018 proved that single player games make money and are great, and people want them. Huge sellers like God of War, Red Dead 2, Spider-Man, and even smaller hits like Celeste and Dead Cells knock this genre out of the park and shove those words in those people's faces. Because they are here, these games exist, and people want them. And it just goes to show you that the best games, no matter the format, to be honest, whether online or not, when it comes from passion and dedication, people will buy your game. People will buy the systems to buy your game, right? That's what will happen when you put the time and effort to make a game. Not try to shove it with microtransactions, not try to shove it with monetization systems and half-ass experiences to just lure people to put in money for a promise of a better game. No, this is how you do gaming correctly. Release a game of quality and people will flock to it, and people will spend their money on it. We need to keep reminding ourselves that This is how we do it. And I'm not saying that games cannot be monetized or have microtransactions in them. They can coexist and they can live together. That is fine. But giving priority to quality and an actual game, that is the foundation to making that coexistence happen. And I just hope that 2019 continues this trend of giving us unique and enjoyable experiences. So yeah, 2018 was not a bad year at all. I think we made some good industry moves, like showcasing single player games are still very viable. The push for crossplay is something that we have a chance of now really making a staple in the future. We also have to take into consideration that we are now stomping on shitty monetization and microtransaction practices because these are not going to fly. We as consumers have become hyper aware of these kinds of things, and I hope that we continue being more aware and hyper aware and vocal against shitty practices. These are things that are positive and that will allow us to shape gaming for the better. We must not forget that 2018 was still a harsh reminder of things that aren't always perfect. We really do have to do better as gaming consumers to ensure that the talented teams behind our games get the respect and compensation they deserve. No game is worth an overworked person behind it, and it is unhealthy, and this toxic mentality just has to go away. We have to push publishers and game makers to push quality games out and fight against rush games, broken games, and overly monetized games. Money will go to the games if they are quality, and we have to punish those who try to scam us. Let us be more vigilant and more active in the stopping of this kind of behavior in 2019. And with that, I would like to conclude this 2018 Top 5 review video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. This is Perspective Gaming. I'm your host, Flame078, logging off for now, and until next time, adios.